So try and work out what's wrong here. Yeah, it's not meant to move anything like that. So what we've got here is a drive shaft centre bearing for the old Luxie. So as you could see by this one, it's totally shot. There's no rubber around the outside, so it really does need replacing. So other than just having a lot of vibration through the drive line, it can do a lot of damage to other things. So on the transfer case, you've got your oil seal in the back here, and with all that movement constantly up and down, it can destroy that oil seal, and then you got to, you know, rebuild the transfer case. And it could also do bearings inside your transfer case, so you really don't want to leave it this long. So with your new bearing, you want to just have a look, make sure it's pretty much the same as the last one. This one, as you can see, has got some little tabs on it, which could just stabilise it a bit more along the cross member, but that looks more or less the same, so we'll just take the drive shaft out and replace it. So instead of trying to replace the centre bearing while everything's still in the car, that could be really tricky and it's quite awkward working under here. What instead we're going to do is we're going to drop the drive shafts and the centre bearing all out. So you want to undo this back drive shaft that goes to the diff. Now you want to do this one so then you can spin the rest of it and get to these bolts a lot easier, because it's a lot harder to get up the top here to these bolts when you can't spin the diff because all the wheels are on the ground. So if you undo these ones, there's also a lot more room up the top. So drop the back drive shaft down, then you can spin the front one around once you're starting to undo all the bolts. Could be a good idea to put some WD-40 or penetrating liquid on some of these. I don't think these ones are going to need it. They don't seem too rusted up, and I can use a bit of force on them. So what you need to undo most drive shafts is a 14mm ring spanner that can go on the back there, and then a 14mm with an extension on a ratchet or a breaker bar if they're really tight to go on the front here, and you can just undo them. Most of the time though, you don't actually need the ratchet on the front. It's only just in case. Usually you can just break these ones loose like that. You need a bit of force to usually break it loose. And there you go, it comes right off. So it's now the exact same process for the front drive shaft. So you can twist it now so you can turn it around to get to those top bolts. So the bolts holding the centre bearing in seem to be really quite seized in there. I've got them out a little bit, but I think a bit of WD-40 will help loosen them up. And if that doesn't work, I've got a blowtorch to maybe help loosen them up a bit more. We got it out. Well, we lost half the drive shaft, but we got it out. A little bit of heat from a blowtorch just to expand the metal around it and break some of the rust off. A few little taps with the hammer to break the rust off as well. Bit of WD-40 and a fair bit of persuasion with the socket. So now this is actually the back part of the drive shaft that goes to the diff, and we've got to pull this off because inside here is a nut, like a pretty big locking nut, and that's what we've got to undo to pull this flange off, and the whole thing will pull out. So if we undo this, which is going to be a bit tricky because maybe not actually, maybe if you hold that, but there we go. So we've got that uni joint and drive shaft off. Now you can see what I mean about the kind of locking nut in there. Now these are really annoying to get off because they've got the edges folded over into them, and you got to kind of push that out, and they're really tough. Now I've got a bit of a drift punch sort of thing here, and I'm going to see if I can push this out, otherwise I'm going to really heat it up and make the metal soft. Now you only want this on your nut. You don't want to put too much heat onto the actual spline because you don't want that expanding too much with the nut. You want the nut to expand more than the actual where the nut is on. Now the hottest part of the flame is right there. You can see right where that blue ends. That's the hottest part of the flame, so that's where you want to put most of the heat. So I've been trying for the past half hour or so to get this nut undone. I've tried heat, I've tried a bit of penetrating oil, I've tried a breaker bar, I've tried my air impact, which isn't that flash, but you know, anything's better than nothing. And I still can't get it off, it won't budge. So what I'm going to do is actually take it into the mechanics in town. They've got a big air compressor and a big air gun, so that should be able to get it off. So I got it back from the mechanics in town, and Ray loosened the nut off for me. Now it just comes off easily. Look at that, easy. It's just that nut that's hard to get off. Now what you do, is you can see that's the flange, and you couldn't pull this shaft through. You get the bearing there, just give it a little wiggle, maybe a bit of a love tap with a hammer. So because there's actually the bearing still on there, and that doesn't really want to come off too easily, so I've got a 3-jaw puller here. Put these on. And wouldn't you know, just like that, comes off easy. So after a bit of thinking, what we've done is swapped the bearing out of the old one, which was still good. There was no play in it, heaps of grease, it was still fine. And we put that into the new housing. Because this one, I reckon, is just a little bit too small. So it should just like slide into the shaft easily. And we were having to like hammer that on. And that's not what you should do. So we put the old bearing in the new housing, and that's quite fine. Now we just take it back to the Hilux and chuck her in. Putting the drive shaft back in is the same process as taking it out, just in reverse. We're going to start from the middle again, so bolt the center bearing up to the cross member in here, and then we'll put the each drive shaft in each end. So that's the front drive shaft put in. Back drive shaft put in, the centre bearing all tightened up, and all the drive shafts tightened up nice and tight. They won't be coming undone. No more slop, so it's all fixed now. So it wasn't too tricky of an install. There was a few problems with this one, as you could see, like we obviously had just a slightly wrong centre bearing, or it was manufactured wrong, whatever. But we made that work in the end, and it's all good now. It's probably the newest, well, it is the newest part on this Hilux, so it'll get going now and won't destroy anything else.